Welcome. You're here now, and that's more than enough. Tonight, we're going to gently explore the beautiful complexity of the human brain, not in a rushed or clinical way, but slowly, softly, like walking barefoot through a quiet forest of thoughts. This isn't a lecture. It's a slow, drifting journey. As the minutes pass, your body will soften into rest, and your mind will relax into curiosity. All you need to do is listen. You don't even need to try to remember anything. Just let the words flow over you like a calm river. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Share it in the comments below. It's always peaceful to see how many of us are connected through this quiet moment, even if we're all lying in different rooms on different sides of the world. And if you find comfort here, if this story helps you relax, learn, or fall asleep, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like, or sharing this with someone who might need a moment of peace too. Now, take a slow, full breath in and let it out. Let your body settle a little deeper. You don't have to hold anything anymore. Not your shoulders, not your thoughts. Let it all soften. Tonight, we'll wander slowly through the architecture of your own mind, through the folds and ridges, the signals and the silence, from the outer layers of thought and perception down to the ancient, quiet centers of emotion and instinct. You might drift off halfway through. That's okay. The brain doesn't stop listening when you fall asleep. It continues to absorb, to learn, to dream. As we go through each part of the brain, I'll describe where it sits, what it does, and how it quietly supports every part of your waking and sleeping life. We'll move at a gentle pace. You may forget the details, and that's completely fine. This isn't about memorization, it's about immersion. If your thoughts wander, let them. If your eyes feel heavy, let them close. There's no right way to listen. There's no wrong way to rest. Think of this as a journey inward. You are about to visit the most intricate structure known to science, the human brain. It weighs about 3 pounds, yet it holds your memories, your fears, your imagination. It solves problems. It creates music. It falls in love. It dreams. Even now, as you begin to drift, your brain is gently shifting into sleep mode, lowering its waves, quieting the conscious chatter, guiding your body into stillness. You're not alone here. This voice will stay with you, like a guide in a library of thoughts. You are safe. You are held. You are resting. And with that, let's begin our journey through the human brain, slowly, softly, and with wonder. Chapter 1. General Structure of the Brain. The human brain is a soft, mysterious organ. It rests gently inside the skull, floating in a bath of protective fluid. On average, it weighs about 3 pounds. Yet within it exists every thought you've ever had, every memory, every dream. It is both delicate and powerful, both ancient and ever-evolving. As you settle into this chapter, let your body relax a little more. Let each word slow your breath, soften your shoulders. You're simply listening now, calmly exploring the structure of your own mind. We begin with the most basic divisions. The brain is often described in 3 main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each plays a vital role, and each connects with the others in ways that are seamless and continuous. The cerebrum is the largest portion of the brain. It takes up most of the space inside your skull, and it's what people often picture when they think of the brain's outer appearance. It has that familiar wrinkled surface, like a tightly folded walnut or a labyrinth of ridges and valleys. These folds are called gyri and sulci. Gyri are the raised ridges, and sulci are the grooves between them. Together, they greatly increase the surface area of the brain, allowing more room for neurons and connections. The cerebrum is divided into 2 halves, called the left and right hemispheres. These hemispheres are mirror images in structure, but each tends to specialize in slightly different tasks. The left hemisphere is often associated with logic, language, and analytical thinking, while the right is more connected to emotion, intuition, and creative expression. Still, they're deeply connected and always communicating. Between the 2 hemispheres lies a thick band of nerve fibers known as the corpus callosum. This structure acts like a bridge, allowing signals to pass from one hemisphere to the other. Imagine it as a quiet, invisible highway of thought, where every second millions of messages travel in both directions. Now, let's gently descend a bit lower. Behind and slightly underneath the cerebrum is the cerebellum. This part of the brain is smaller and tucked away, almost like a secret tucked into the back of your mind. It has its own folds and ridges, tightly packed and elegant. The The cerebellum is responsible for balance, coordination, and fine motor control. It allows you to move smoothly, to dance, to catch a ball, to type without thinking about each finger. If you've ever walked across a narrow beam and instinctively adjusted your posture to stay balanced, thank your cerebellum. If you've learned to ride a bike, the cerebellum quietly remembers how, even years later. The third main part is the brainstem. It connects the brain to the spinal cord and controls many of the body's most basic and automatic functions: breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, and sleep cycles. It is the oldest part of the brain in evolutionary terms, and perhaps the most quietly essential. The brainstem has three main sections: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Each one handles its own responsibilities, like keeping your eyes focused, your breathing steady, or your reflexes sharp. And all of this happens without conscious thought. You never have to remind your brainstem to keep you alive, it simply does. Taken together, these three structures, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem, form the foundational architecture of your brain. Like the skeleton of a building, they support everything else. Let's return for a moment to the surface of the cerebrum. Its wrinkled texture, often grayish in color, is called the cerebral cortex. This outermost layer is rich in neurons and is where much of your conscious processing occurs. It's here that sensory information is interpreted, that thoughts take form, that decisions are made, and that personality arises. If you could run your hand across the cortex, you might imagine it feeling soft, yet dense, a sponge of living tissue. Billions of tiny cells packed together, buzzing silently with microscopic electrical signals. Every second of your life, these cells are processing input, forming patterns, and adapting to change. Just beneath the cortex is the white matter. Unlike the grayish outer layer, the white matter is paler due to the presence of myelin, a fatty substance that coats many of the nerve fibers. Myelin acts like insulation, speeding up the transmission of electrical signals across long distances within the brain. If the gray matter is the command center, the white matter is the highway system connecting every region with remarkable efficiency. Take another breath here. Let it out slowly. You're doing well. You are beginning to see the brain not as a cold clinical object, but as a landscape. A vast, alive terrain. One you carry with you always. Now that you've been gently introduced to the major structures of the brain, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem, let's take a moment to reflect on how beautifully connected these parts are. Nothing in the brain operates in isolation. Everything is in motion, in communication, in balance. You might imagine the brain as an orchestra. Each section has its own role: percussion, strings, woodwinds, but together they form something richer. The cerebrum leads the composition, offering thoughts and intentions. The cerebellum adds precision and timing, and the brainstem maintains the rhythm of life itself. Let's return now to the hemispheres of the cerebrum. Though similar in shape, they are functionally distinct. The left hemisphere is more analytical. It processes language, logic, numbers, and sequences. It helps you follow directions, solve equations, and understand grammar. When you're speaking or writing, the left hemisphere is likely leading. The right hemisphere is more holistic. It interprets tone, emotion, space, and pattern. It sees the bigger picture. When you're listening to music, daydreaming, or recognizing a friend's face, your right hemisphere is quietly at work. It's important to remember that these are tendencies, not strict rules. Both hemispheres work together constantly, sharing their strengths and complementing each other. Language, for example, involves areas on both sides of the brain. Emotion does too. It's all a collaboration. The surface of each hemisphere is divided into 4 distinct regions called lobes: the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. We'll explore each one in greater detail later, but let's gently introduce them now, like stepping into a quiet museum for the first time. The frontal lobe lies just behind your forehead. It's the largest lobe and one of the most recently evolved areas of the brain. It governs decision-making, voluntary movement, language production, and personality. It's where your intentions are shaped, where your focus sharpens, where your behavior is guided by long-term thinking. When you choose to take a deep breath right now or imagine tomorrow's tasks, your frontal lobe is actively participating. It is your inner planner, your social compass, your voice of reason. Behind the frontal lobe, near the top of your head, is the parietal lobe. This region helps process sensory information from the body touch, temperature, pain, and spatial awareness. It allows you to know where your body is in space, to distinguish textures, to navigate your surroundings. If you close your eyes and run your fingers across a soft blanket, the sensation is processed through your parietal lobe. If you balance on one foot and feel the pressure shift, this lobe is helping you adjust. Beneath the temples, on the sides of the brain, you'll find the temporal lobes. These are the centers of sound and language comprehension. They allow you to hear, to understand words, to recognize melodies. The left temporal lobe helps process speech and meaning, while the right often handles tone, pitch, and music. These lobes are also deeply involved in memory. Structures within the temporal lobe help form and store long-term memories. When you recall a childhood song or a familiar voice, the temporal lobe lights up with quiet recognition. At the very back of the brain lies the occipital lobe. It's the visual center of the brain, processing everything your eyes take in. Color, shape, motion, depth, all interpreted here. Even with your eyes closed, you might picture a light or a face. That image is being shaped within the occipital lobe. These four lobes work together seamlessly. Imagine reading a sentence. Your occipital lobe sees the letters. Your temporal lobe hears the words in your mind. Your frontal lobe interprets the meaning. And your parietal lobe keeps track of the book's position in your hands. A simple act made possible by complex harmony. Just beneath these outer layers lies a hidden world of deeper structures. Emotional centers, memory centers, and primal instincts. We'll visit those soon. But for now, you are gently mapping the surface, learning its shapes and rhythms. Take another long, relaxed breath. If you feel yourself drifting, that's perfectly fine. Let the words become part of the background. Let your body become still. There is nothing you need to do. Just be here. The brain is both fragile and resilient. It can be injured by the smallest shock, yet it can adapt, heal, and change in profound ways. This ability to rewire itself to form new pathways, to adjust to new experiences, is called neuroplasticity, and it is one of the most astonishing features of the brain. It means that learning never truly stops, that healing is possible, that even now, as you listen, your brain is gently reshaping itself in response. Perhaps this gives you a quiet sense of wonder, a feeling that even in sleep, something miraculous continues, a slow rearranging, a quiet rebuilding. As we close this chapter, carry that feeling with you. The brain is not a machine. It's not a puzzle to be solved. It's a living forest, growing, adapting, listening. You are now ready to travel deeper into the four lobes, the neurons that fire beneath, and the hidden spaces of memory and emotion. But for now, breathe in and out, and let this knowledge settle softly, like dust on ancient books. Chapter 2. The Cerebral Lobes. The brain's outer surface, the cerebrum, is not just a single undivided mass. It's carefully and elegantly organized into regions called lobes, 4 on each side, each with unique roles. These lobes work in harmony, like 4 distinct voices singing in chorus, creating the full symphony of thought, perception, and feeling. The 4 lobes are the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital lobes. Each rests in a specific region of your skull, named after the bones that cover them. Each has its own responsibilities, but none works alone. As you relax into this exploration, imagine slowly walking through each lobe as if through a quiet museum, observing how it gently shapes your experience of the world. Let's begin with the frontal lobe, the largest and perhaps most distinctly human part of the brain. It lies just behind your forehead, stretching back toward the center of the brain. This lobe is the seat of higher thinking, decision-making, planning, judgment, personality, and voluntary movement. Your frontal lobe is what allows you to imagine tomorrow, to hold back a reaction, to make a choice that reflects your long-term values. It helps you weigh possibilities, reflect on past experiences, and consider the needs of others. It is your inner voice, the thoughtful part of you that asks, "What if?" before you act. Within the frontal lobe, there is a special area called the prefrontal cortex. This region is associated with reasoning, self-control, and social behavior. It helps you stay focused during a long task, resist distractions, and interpret complex emotional situations. If you've ever taken a deep breath before responding to someone in frustration, that moment of pause came from your prefrontal cortex. Behind that lies the motor cortex, which controls voluntary muscle movement. It's organized like a map of your body, with different regions controlling your fingers, hands, arms, legs, and face. This motor map is incredibly precise. When you decide to raise your hand or blink your eyes, Tiny signals are sent from this area to your muscles almost instantly. Every time you move, whether it's dancing freely or reaching slowly for a cup of tea, your frontal lobe is in motion too, translating thoughts into action. It's not just commanding your body, it's coordinating, refining, adjusting, silently. Now, let's gently shift upward and slightly back into the parietal lobe. This lobe sits behind the frontal lobe and above the temporal lobe. It plays a key role in processing sensory information from the body: touch, pressure, temperature, pain, and spatial awareness. When you run your fingers across soft fabric or feel the warmth of sunlight on your skin, your parietal lobe is quietly interpreting those sensations. It allows you to distinguish rough from smooth, cold from warm, light from firm. It also helps you understand where your body is in space, even with your eyes closed. In the parietal lobe is the somatosensory cortex, a region dedicated to interpreting physical sensations. Like the motor cortex, it's organized like a map of the body. Each part of the cortex corresponds to a specific body region. Areas like the lips and fingers have more space dedicated to them, reflecting their heightened sensitivity. If you've ever tried to walk in the dark and found your way by feeling the walls, your parietal lobe was working at its best. It helps you build a mental model of your surroundings, integrating what you touch, see, and feel into one coherent sense of where you are. It helps you navigate a room, find your balance, and understand the shape of things. But the parietal lobe also plays a role in more abstract functions like math, spatial reasoning, and even the ability to understand symbolic relationships. The same region that feels the texture of a leaf also helps you solve a puzzle or estimate the length of a hallway. Together, the frontal and parietal lobes form a powerful front and center duo: thought and action, sensation and intention, working in a seamless loop. Now let's gently descend into the temporal lobe, located on the sides of your brain, just above your ears. The temporal lobes are involved in hearing, language comprehension, memory, and emotion. They are the keepers of sound and story. The auditory cortex, located in the upper part of the temporal lobe, receives signals from the ears and interprets them into the sounds you hear: voices, music, rain. It allows you to recognize familiar sounds and distinguish the tone and pitch of a melody. If you've ever closed your eyes and smiled at the sound of a favorite song, your temporal lobe was illuminating that moment. It doesn't just process the sound, it gives it meaning, emotional color, and memory. Speaking of memory, within the temporal lobe lies the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure that plays a vital role in forming new memories. When you learn something new, or recall the smell of your grandmother's kitchen, the hippocampus is actively at work, linking time, place, feeling, and event. The temporal lobe also houses part of the limbic system, including the amygdala, which helps process emotion, particularly fear and pleasure. We'll explore those in more depth later, but for now, know that the temporal lobe is not just about hearing. It's deeply tied to what you feel and remember. Let yourself rest here for a moment. Take a deep breath. Your brain is not only sensing the world, it is remembering it, assigning emotion to it, and telling stories back to you in the language of memory. You've now gently walked through 3 of the 4 lobes, each with its own territory, its own tasks, and its own quiet brilliance. But there is one more to visit, one final window into the world. In the next part, we'll explore the occipital lobe, the world of vision, as well as how all 4 lobes communicate together to create a seamless stream of consciousness. You're doing well. You're moving slowly and thoughtfully through the mind that holds your entire sense of being. Let your eyes close if they haven't already. There is nowhere else you need to be. The journey continues when you're ready. Now we arrive at the final of the 4 cerebral lobes, the occipital lobe, a small yet incredibly vital region located at the very back of your brain. Though it may seem tucked away, it plays a central role in your experience of the world. This is the center of your visual processing, the part of your brain that turns light into meaning. Imagine opening your eyes in the morning. Light pours in through the pupils, striking the retinas at the back of your eyes. Those light patterns are immediately converted into electrical signals, traveling through the optic nerves to reach the occipital lobes. And in a fraction of a second, your brain assembles those signals into shapes, edges, movement, and color. You see your bedroom. You recognize the outline of the ceiling. You see light dancing on the wall. The occipital lobes take raw light and turn it into perception, into vision. They don't just give you sight, they give you the meaning behind it. Within this lobe is the primary visual cortex, also known as V1. It is the very first cortical stop for visual information. From there, information is passed along to other visual areas, each one specializing in different aspects: shape, color, depth, motion. It's like a visual assembly line working in perfect harmony. Interestingly, when you close your eyes and imagine a face or a place, the occipital lobe is often still active. Visual memory lives here too. The same pathways that help you see are also involved in visual imagination. And when you dream, the visual cortex lights up as if you are actually seeing. The mind produces pictures from nothing. All of it happens in this quiet rear chamber of the mind. With all 4 lobes now gently explored, you can begin to appreciate the brilliance of their design, not only in what they do individually, but in how beautifully they collaborate. Let's imagine a single, simple experience: watching a bird fly across the sky. Your occipital lobe processes the shape, color, and movement of the bird. Your temporal lobe interprets the sound of its wings, perhaps even recalls the memory of a bird from your childhood. Your parietal lobe helps track the bird's location and movement through space, letting your eyes follow it smoothly. And your frontal lobe might consider what kind of bird it is, reflect on its symbolism, or choose to write about it in a journal later. All of that, vision, memory, sound, space, thought, woven into one seamless moment. That is the power of the cerebral lobes working together. Each lobe contains its own networks, but they are deeply connected through pathways of white matter, those insulated nerve fibers that allow fast and efficient communication across the brain. These connections are like bridges and tunnels, moving ideas, sensations, and signals from one region to another with astonishing speed. Some of the most remarkable functions of the brain happen not in isolated areas, but in the space between, in the cooperation across lobes. For example, reading a sentence, just like the one you're hearing now, relies on multiple regions. Your occipital lobe sees the letters. Your temporal lobe processes the sound of each word. Your frontal lobe interprets the meaning, and your parietal lobe may help keep track of the page. Even emotional responses, such as finding something beautiful, surprising, or comforting, may trigger activity in several lobes at once. This integration is part of what makes the brain so mysterious and so marvelous. You are not made up of isolated functions. You are a whole, a flowing, adaptive, living mind. Now let's take a quiet moment to imagine the brain as a landscape divided not by boundaries, but by gentle hills and valleys. The gyri rise like ridges. The sulci dip like streams. Together, they form an elegant terrain where electricity dances and thoughts emerge. Even as you lie still now, your cerebral lobes are gently working. They monitor the sound of this voice. They shape your dreams. They keep track of your body and the softness of your bed. They may even generate mental images, ripples in the visual cortex, faint echoes in the auditory cortex. And though you may not be aware of it, this activity is calm, slower, softer than during the day. The waves of your brain, its electrical rhythms, are beginning to shift, from beta waves of alertness to alpha, then theta, and eventually delta waves of deep sleep. The lobes do not power off when you sleep. They simply shift roles. They enter a mode of integration, processing what the day brought in, reinforcing what matters, clearing what does not. It is in this state that the brain heals. It consolidates. It reorganizes itself, slowly, quietly, as you drift deeper. The plasticity of your brain, the ability to change, is always active. Even in sleep, new pathways are being laid, old ones adjusted, connections reinforced. With every experience, every word, every breath, your brain becomes slightly different. And so, as you relax here, perhaps already halfway to dreaming, your frontal lobe may gently ease into rest. Your temporal lobe might hold on to the soft tone of the voice. Your occipital lobe may flicker with images from memory or fantasy. All of it part of one living, integrated system. Take another slow, full breath in and let it go. You now carry a gentle understanding of the 4 cerebral lobes. They are not just anatomical sections. They are the foundation of your experience, the builders of thought, perception, emotion, and movement. You don't need to remember their names or functions. Just know that your brain holds everything you are, that within it, these 4 lobes are always there, watching, sensing, feeling, imagining. Let go of the need to think. Let go of the structure. Let yourself drift like a feather through space. The journey will continue, deeper into the cells of the brain, into the microscopic messengers that let all this happen. The neurons, the synapses, the glimmers of electricity that make thought possible. But for now, you are here. You are safe. You are held by the quiet hum of your mind. Chapter 3. Neurons and Synapses. Now that you've explored the great lobes of the brain, the visible landscapes of your mind, it's time to go deeper, beyond the folds and structures, into the microscopic, into the electrical, into the very building blocks of thought itself. Let's step gently into the world of the neuron. Your brain is made up of an estimated 86 billion neurons, each one a tiny living cell, delicate, specialized, and yet incredibly powerful. These neurons are the messengers, the signal carriers, the whisperers of the brain. They do not touch each other directly, and yet they are always in communication. A neuron has three main parts: the cell body, the dendrites, and the axon. The cell body, or soma, is like the core of the neuron. It contains the nucleus, where the cell's DNA lives. It's where nutrients are processed and energy is generated. You might imagine it as the neuron's kitchen and brain combined, a place of both identity and sustenance. Branching out from the soma are the dendrites. These are thin, tree-like structures that receive incoming signals from other neurons. A single neuron can have hundreds or even thousands of dendrites, each one like a tiny listening ear, waiting for information to arrive. And then there is the axon, a long, slender extension that carries signals away from the neuron toward other cells. Some axons are just a fraction of a millimeter long. Others can stretch over a meter, as in the case of neurons that reach from your spine to your toes. Along the axon, many are coated with a fatty substance called myelin. This insulating layer speeds up the signal, allowing impulses to travel more efficiently. Picture a wire wrapped in protective plastic. The myelin is like that. It keeps the signal strong, fast, and focused. At the very end of the axon are the axon terminals, small bulb-like tips that come incredibly close to the dendrites of the next neuron. So close, in fact, that there's only a tiny space between them. This space is called a synapse. The synapse is where the real magic happens. When a neuron sends a message, it creates an electrical impulse that travels down the axon, almost like a tiny spark running along a fuse. When the impulse reaches the end, it doesn't jump across the gap. Instead, it triggers the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters float across the synaptic gap, reach the next neuron's dendrites, and either excite or inhibit a new signal. If the signal is strong enough, the next neuron will fire. If not, it will stay silent. This dance of firing and silence, of chemistry and electricity, is happening constantly inside your brain, even now. As you listen, millions of neurons are communicating, passing along sensations, thoughts, memories, and emotions. Let's pause here and imagine this process. Close your eyes if they aren't already. Picture a vast forest filled with glowing trees. Each tree is a neuron. The branches are the dendrites, and a long shimmering root is the axon. Now, imagine tiny pulses of light traveling down those roots, flashes of electricity leaping between tree to tree, carried by bursts of mist like fireflies in the fog. That's how your brain speaks to itself. The firing of a neuron is called an action potential. It's a brief change in electrical charge that travels like a wave along the axon. It happens incredibly fast, within milliseconds, but its impact is everything. It's how you move a finger, recall a name, feel love, or begin to drift off to sleep. What's beautiful is that neurons don't work alone. They form networks, vast, interconnected webs. A single neuron might connect to 1,000 others, some to 10,000, others even more. These connections form circuits, and over time, the circuits change. They strengthen with use. They weaken when ignored. This ability to rewire, to reshape based on experience, is part of neuroplasticity, a gentle, ongoing process of adaptation. It's why learning is possible, why recovery from injury can happen, why your thoughts today can be different from yesterday's. Your brain is never truly fixed. It is always becoming. Let's reflect for a moment. You are not hearing this voice as a recording in your head. You are processing it in real time. Each word enters your ears as sound waves, which become electrical signals, which fire through networks of neurons in your auditory cortex. The tone, the rhythm, the meaning interpreted instantly by millions of tiny cells. And somehow, all of that becomes understanding, emotion, calm. Isn't that extraordinary? Even more remarkable is the way neural pathways strengthen through repetition. The more a pathway is used, the easier it becomes to access. Like a trail through the woods that becomes smoother the more it is walked. This is how habits form, how skills become second nature, how you can remember a song from childhood, or ride a bike after years away. The neurons remember. They've built a well-worn path. And as you relax now, listening without pressure, your neurons are adjusting, gently, slowly, silently, building new pathways, restoring others. You don't have to try, you don't have to force, you simply listen, and it happens on its own. In the next part, we'll explore the different types of neurons, the role of glial cells, and how entire thoughts and memories emerge from the quiet firing of countless connections. But for now, take a breath. Let it fall. You are resting in the glow of your own inner universe. Now that you understand the basic structure of a neuron and how it communicates across the synapse, let's gently go deeper into the different types of neurons and the supporting cells that help them function in harmony. Neurons, though all built from the same fundamental parts, are not all alike. They come in many shapes and sizes, each one adapted to a specific purpose. Some send messages outward, others receive them, and some simply act as relays, bridging gaps between distant regions. The first type is the sensory neuron. These are the neurons that carry information from the outside world into your nervous system. When you touch something cold, see a bright light, or hear a sound, sensory neurons are responsible for bringing those signals to the brain. They are like messengers from the world, carrying whispers of experience into the mind. Then there are the motor neurons. These carry signals in the other direction, from the brain and spinal cord out to the muscles. When you decide to move your hand, it's motor neurons that deliver the command. They are the quiet translators of intention into action. Between these two sensory and motor lie the interneurons. These are perhaps the most numerous and diverse. They live entirely within the brain and spinal cord, connecting neuron to neuron, forming complex networks of thought, memory, and coordination. Most of the brain's activity is carried by these interneurons, hidden from view, working tirelessly in the background. Each neuron is supported by an even larger population of glial cells, sometimes called the silent partners of the nervous system. For many years, they were thought to play only passive roles, but we now know that glial cells are essential. There are several types. Astrocytes help maintain the chemical environment around neurons. They provide nutrients, regulate ion balance, and even assist in the repair of injured tissue. They look like tiny stars under a microscope, hence the name, and they are always watching, always caring. Oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system and Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system are responsible for producing myelin, the protective sheath that insulates axons. Without these cells, electrical signals would slow, scatter, or fail to arrive altogether. Another important type of glial cell is the microglia. These are the brain's immune cells. They patrol the environment, searching for damaged tissue, pathogens, or debris. When something goes wrong, they respond quickly, cleaning up, protecting, and helping the brain return to balance. Together, these glial cells form a support system that is just as vital as the neurons themselves. Like caretakers of a garden, they tend to the roots, water the soil, and keep everything in healthy rhythm. Now imagine again the vast network inside your head. Not just neurons, but glial cells woven around them like threads of silk. Signals darting down axons, chemical messengers crossing synapses, astrocytes monitoring the space in between, a living city pulsing with microscopic life. Even something as simple as a memory is not stored in one place. It is encoded in the connections, in the patterns of firing neurons across many regions of the brain. Let's say you remember a beach. That memory might activate your visual cortex with the image of the waves, your auditory cortex with the sound of the surf, your somatosensory cortex with the feeling of warm sand, and your emotional centers with the joy or nostalgia tied to that moment. This is called distributed processing. No single neuron holds a memory. It is the pattern of activity across thousands, even millions of neurons that creates the memory. And when you recall it, that same pattern fires again, like a spark traveling down familiar paths. The same is true for thoughts, feelings, movements, even language. The mind is not a place, it is a process, an endless interplay of cells, signals, and chemical flows. But what happens when you learn something new? When you learn, whether it's a word in a new language, a dance move, or a fact about the stars, new connections are formed between neurons. Synapses become stronger, signals become faster. This is synaptic plasticity. There's a saying in neuroscience, neurons that fire together wire together. Repetition strengthens the connections. Attention deepens them. Sleep reinforces them. And that's one of the most beautiful things about learning. It physically changes your brain. Not metaphorically. Literally. New dendrites grow. New pathways form. Your brain reshapes itself based on what you focus on, what you care about, what you practice. Even in rest. Even now. That's why sleep is not just a pause. It's a time when the brain organizes, prunes, and consolidates. Some synapses are strengthened. Others gently let go. The brain trims away what isn't needed to make space for what matters. This quiet sculpting is part of what makes the human brain so special. It adapts. It learns. It changes over time. And sometimes the tiniest changes have the most profound effects. A single new connection can alter how you feel, how you see the world, how you respond in a difficult moment. Take a breath now. Let it be long and slow. Feel how your own mind is not a machine, but a living, changing forest of connections. Billions of neurons, trillions of synapses, each firing with potential, each resting between thoughts, a galaxy of light within you. And yet, it's all so quiet, so calm. As you drift deeper into rest, your neurons begin to slow. The firing patterns change. The networks soften. You may find yourself dreaming soon, and in those dreams, your neurons will continue to talk. New ideas may form, memories may replay, emotions may be gently processed and laid to rest. You are not doing this alone. Your brain is doing it with you, for you, silently, patiently. So as this chapter comes to a close, let yourself release the effort of understanding. Let the facts drift like snow on water. Your brain has already heard, it already knows what to keep. You are not just thinking, you are being, and your neurons, the tiny keepers of light, are watching over you as you sleep. Chapter 4. The Central and Peripheral Nervous System. As we continue our quiet journey through the brain, we now begin to step back, to widen our view. Because while the brain is the heart of the nervous system, it is only one part of a much larger whole. Your nervous system is the vast communication network that allows your body and brain to speak to each other. Every sensation you feel, every movement you make, every thought that leads to action, these are made possible by this intricate system. It's divided into two main parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. These two branches are deeply connected, working as one unified body. But for clarity, let's explore them gently, one at a time. The central nervous system, or CNS, is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. It is the command center, the place where information is processed, decisions are made, and responses are sent out. You've already spent some time in the brain, the grand conductor. But now, let's descend down the spinal cord, the quiet corridor that runs from the base of the brainstem down through the spine. The spinal cord is protected by your vertebrae, cushioned by fluid, and surrounded by layers of tissue called meninges. It's about the width of your little finger, but inside it carries vital information between the brain and body. Within the spinal cord, signals travel in both directions. Some carry sensory input from the body up to the brain, messages about touch, pain, temperature, and position. Others carry motor output from the brain down to the muscles, telling your limbs when and how to move. Think of the spinal cord as a superhighway. Messages zip along its length in milliseconds, and in some cases it can even act without waiting for the brain. These are called reflexes. Imagine touching something hot. Your hand pulls away almost instantly, before you consciously feel the heat. That's because the signal traveled from your hand to your spinal cord and back again in a tight loop, protecting you before your brain had time to think. This efficiency is what makes the central nervous system so vital. It allows for rapid response and complex coordination. But of course, the CNS doesn't work alone. Branching out from the spinal cord and from the brain itself are nerves. These are bundles of axons that stretch outward into the body like rivers flowing from a central spring. Together they form the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. The peripheral nervous system connects the CNS to every organ, limb, muscle, and sense receptor. Without it, the brain would be isolated, brilliant, but blind. There are two main kinds of nerves in the PNS, cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Cranial nerves emerge directly from the brain, especially the brainstem. There are 12 pairs, each with specific functions. Some control eye movement. Others manage facial expression, taste, hearing, balance, and more. These nerves are what allow you to smile, swallow, blink, and listen. Spinal nerves, on the other hand, emerge from the spinal cord. There are 31 pairs, each branching out to different parts of the body. These nerves are mixed. Some fibers carry sensory information in, others carry motor commands out. Together, these nerves form a network that allows the body and brain to speak constantly. Even now, as you lie still, your brain is receiving updates. The pressure of the mattress against your body, the rhythm of your breath, the softness of this voice. And in return, it sends signals back to adjust, to relax, to let go. The communication never stops. It just slows, softens as you drift closer to sleep. In the next part, we'll explore how the peripheral nervous system is further divided into the somatic and autonomic systems, and how your body keeps you safe, steady, and balanced even in your deepest rest. For now, just know this. Your entire body is listening. Your nervous system is the thread that connects every corner of you. Let that thought settle as you rest. Now that you've gently met the central and peripheral nervous systems, let's continue by exploring how the peripheral system is further divided. This next layer of understanding shows us how the body operates both consciously and automatically, without the need for thought. The peripheral nervous system, or PNS, has two major branches, the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Let's begin with the somatic system. This is the branch responsible for voluntary control movements that you think about and initiate. When you reach for a glass of water, when you stretch your arm, when you walk, talk, or type, your somatic nervous system is guiding those movements. It carries motor signals from your brain to your muscles, telling them when to contract and how much force to use. And it also brings sensory signals back from your skin, joints, and muscles, allowing you to feel pressure, temperature, and pain. The somatic system is how you navigate the world with intention. It gives you choice, control, and awareness. But it doesn't act alone. In the background, constantly and silently, another system is always at work, keeping your internal world in balance. This is the autonomic nervous system. As the name suggests, it runs automatically. You don't have to think about your heartbeat, or your digestion, or the widening of your pupils in dim light. The autonomic system takes care of these processes for you around the clock. It's further divided into three parts: the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and enteric systems. The sympathetic nervous system is often called the fight or flight system. It prepares your body for action. When you face danger, or even imagine a stressful situation, this system increases your heart rate, dilates your pupils, sends more blood to your muscles, and releases energy reserves. It's there to protect you, to help you move quickly, respond sharply, survive. On the other side is the parasympathetic nervous system, known as the rest and digest system. It slows the heart rate, encourages digestion, lowers blood pressure, and promotes relaxation and healing. When you lie down to sleep, when you take a slow breath, when you feel safe, this system takes the lead. These two systems don't compete. They work together like a graceful seesaw, adjusting moment by moment to keep your body in equilibrium. One prepares you to act. The other helps you recover. And then there is the enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain. It exists in the walls of your gastrointestinal tract and controls digestion independently. It contains hundreds of millions of neurons and communicates with the brain through the vagus nerve. You may have felt this system in action when you've had a gut feeling or butterflies in your stomach. It listens. It responds. It remembers. Even though the autonomic nervous system operates below the level of consciousness, it is profoundly responsive to your internal and external environment. A single thought can influence your heart rate. A deep breath can shift your entire nervous state. And that's where sleep begins. As you lie still now, your parasympathetic system is slowly taking over. Your breath is softening, your heart is beating gently. Your muscles are relaxing. Your digestive system may quietly come to life as your body enters its natural cycle of rest and repair. The nervous system does not sleep, but it allows you to. Even now, your brainstem is regulating your heartbeat. Your spinal cord is maintaining tone in your muscles. Nerves are still sending messages, but the patterns are slower, quieter, more rhythmic. All of this, every nerve, every reflex, every unconscious adjustment, is your body's way of caring for itself. You are deeply supported, even when you're unaware. So let your body feel that support now. You are not just resting on the surface. Your cells are resting. Your networks are calming. Your systems are in harmony. The central and peripheral nervous systems are always there, holding you, listening, guiding without demand. And as this chapter closes, let that thought remain with you. You are whole. You are connected. You are safe in your own design. Chapter 5. The Cerebral Cortex. Now that you've traveled through the core structures and systems of the brain, we return to its surface, its outermost layer. This layer is thin, only a few millimeters thick, yet it contains much of what makes us human. It is the place where awareness lives, where sensation is interpreted, where decisions are made, where memories, thoughts, and identity begin to take shape. This is the cerebral cortex. The word cortex comes from Latin, meaning bark, like the bark of a tree. It wraps around the brain like a protective, intelligent skin. Wrinkled, folded, and intricately textured, the cortex covers the entire surface of the cerebrum. And even though it's only about as thick as a pencil eraser, it holds billions of neurons. These folds, the gyri and sulci, aren't random. They serve a purpose. By folding in on itself, the cortex increases its surface area, packing more neurons into a compact space. More surface means more processing power, more complexity, more capacity for thought. Let your mind drift now, as if you were floating above the cortex, tracing its ridges like quiet hills and valleys. Each fold represents connections, networks of cells that communicate, integrate, and adapt. The cortex is generally divided into two kinds of matter: gray matter and white matter. The gray matter is what we mostly see at the surface. It contains the cell bodies of neurons, the part of the cell that receives and processes information. This is where thinking happens, where signals arrive and are interpreted, where consciousness lives. Beneath the gray matter lies the white matter, made of axons coated in myelin, that fatty insulation we've explored before. These axons carry signals from one region of the brain to another, allowing different parts of the cortex to communicate efficiently. If gray matter is the brain's processing center, white matter is its wiring. But the cortex is not uniform. It is divided into areas, each specialized in particular functions. Some interpret what we see, others what we hear. Some allow us to move, others to speak. Some hold memories, and others create meaning. Let's begin at the front. The prefrontal cortex, part of the frontal lobe, sits just behind your forehead. It is one of the most developed areas of the human brain and plays a major role in planning, decision-making, and self-control. It helps you consider consequences, weigh options, and act with intention rather than impulse. When you pause before responding, when you reflect on your behavior, when you imagine the future, you are using your prefrontal cortex. This region is also central to personality. It's what helps you behave differently in different situations, adapt to social cues, and regulate your emotions. It is not the source of emotion itself, but rather the moderator, the wise advisor in the conversation between feeling and action. Move back just slightly, and we find the motor cortex. Located near the center of the brain, it controls voluntary muscle movements. Each region of the motor cortex corresponds to a different part of the body: your fingers, your toes, your lips, your eyes. This organization is sometimes illustrated as the motor homunculus, a distorted figure that maps the body according to how much of the cortex is devoted to each part. The hands and face take up large portions, reflecting the precision and sensitivity needed in those areas. Every time you write, speak, gesture, or even breathe intentionally, signals from your motor cortex are making it happen. Quiet, coordinated signals that ripple through your spinal cord and into your muscles. Directly behind the motor cortex lies the somatosensory cortex in the parietal lobe. This region receives input from the body touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. It too has a map-like organization, where specific parts of the cortex correspond to specific body regions. Imagine now the sensation of your fingertips brushing against soft fabric, or the feeling of warm sunlight on your skin. Those experiences travel from your skin through the spinal cord, into the thalamus, and finally into the somatosensory cortex. And there, they become conscious. There you feel. Move further back, into the occipital lobe, and we reach the visual cortex, the area responsible for interpreting signals from your eyes. This is where light becomes shape, where shadows become depth, where colors are recognized and placed into context. Even when you imagine a scene with your eyes closed, perhaps a mountain, a face, or a favorite room, the visual cortex may activate. It is not limited to external sight. It also plays a role in visual memory and mental imagery. On the sides of the brain, in the temporal lobes, lie the auditory cortices. These areas receive and interpret sound. Volume, tone, rhythm, pitch. Everything you hear, from a whisper to a symphony, passes through here. And just like vision, auditory processing isn't only reactive. It also helps create the inner voice you may be hearing as you think. Further within the temporal lobe, we find regions dedicated to language. The left hemisphere typically contains Broca's area, responsible for speech production, and Wernicke's area, involved in language comprehension. These regions allow us not only to speak and write, but also to understand and respond. When you listen to someone speak, or when you form a sentence in your mind, these areas light up, even if no sound is made. Language is more than words. It is structured meaning, flowing from the cortex into thought. Now let your awareness soften. You've been listening to the outer brain, the layers that allow you to see, hear, speak, and move. The cortex is the canvas on which your life is painted. Every sound, every memory, every quiet decision, it all begins here. In the next part, we'll explore how the cortex creates integration, how different areas communicate, how attention and emotion are managed, and how the cortex helps shape the very sense of you. But for now, take a long, slow breath. Let it deepen. Let your body rest further into your bed or chair. Your cortex is still awake, but softly so, like a dimmed light, like a fading thought. You've now wandered through the various sensory and motor regions of the cerebral cortex, each one dedicated to a unique aspect of your experience. Sight, sound, touch, language, movement, all have their places on this folded sheet of gray matter. But the beauty of the cortex isn't only in its parts, it's in the way those parts communicate. It's not simply that your brain has a visual area, a language area, or a motor area. It's that these areas work together, exchanging information constantly, painting one unified picture of the world around you and within you. This integration is what creates awareness. Imagine hearing a voice call your name in a crowd. You don't just register a sound, you turn your head, scan the scene, recall memories, interpret emotion in the voice. All of that happens in an instant, across many regions of the cortex, without your conscious effort. The association areas of the brain are responsible for this orchestration. They link sensory inputs with meaning, emotion, memory, and decision-making. These areas don't simply process raw data, they make sense of it. For example, the parietal association cortex helps combine visual input with your body's position in space. It allows you to reach for a cup without knocking it over, to thread a needle, to walk through a doorway without brushing the sides. The temporal association areas connect sound and sight with memory and language. When you see a familiar face, or hear the first few notes of a favorite song, these regions quietly activate, retrieving names, emotions, and context. The frontal association cortex, especially in the prefrontal region, plays a role in higher-level thought. Planning, abstract reasoning, goal setting, and moral judgment all arise from here. This is also the seat of working memory, the ability to hold and manipulate information briefly in your mind. Like remembering a phone number just long enough to dial it. But perhaps most profound is how the cortex contributes to your sense of self. You are not simply a collection of sensations and reactions. You are a continuous aware presence, one who reflects, imagines, chooses. And much of that continuity is shaped by the cerebral cortex. It's here that self-awareness arises, that quiet voice that says, "This is me. These are my thoughts. This is my body. This is my place in the world." Neurologically, this sense of self involves many structures, but the default mode network, a set of interconnected regions including parts of the prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and parietal lobe, seems particularly involved. This network is most active when you're not focused on a task, when your mind is wandering, daydreaming, remembering the past, or imagining the future. It is your resting self, your inner narrator. The source of reflection, as you lie quietly now, with no pressure to act or decide. This network may be softly alight, reviewing thoughts, drifting through memories, inventing small dreams. It is also in the cortex that emotion and thought meet. Emotion begins deeper in the brain, in the limbic system, which we'll explore later. But the cortex helps interpret and regulate those feelings. It puts them in context, it gives them names, it decides how to act on them or not. For instance, the prefrontal cortex can calm the amygdala when fear is irrational. It can reframe anger into understanding. It can help you pause, reflect, and respond with intention instead of instinct. This is emotional regulation, and it's one of the most remarkable signs of human maturity. The ability not only to feel, but to choose how you engage with those feelings, to shape your emotional world with care. Even in moments of deep sadness or joy or fear, your cortex is gently helping to guide you through one thought at a time. And then there is attention, the gentle spotlight of the mind. The cortex works with deeper structures, like the thalamus and brainstem, to help you decide what to focus on. Among the endless stimuli, it helps you choose. It filters what matters, what deserves your awareness. As you listen now, your attention may move between this voice and the sound of your breath, between the thoughts in your head and the feeling of your pillow beneath you. That's your cortex, gently adjusting, gently choosing, and all the while, in the background, it continues to shape and reshape itself. The cortex is remarkably plastic, capable of change throughout life. Neurons grow new connections, old ones fade. Entire regions can adapt if another is damaged. A blind person's visual cortex may begin to interpret sound. A musician's motor cortex may enlarge to support fine finger movement. A stroke survivor may regain speech through alternate pathways. The brain finds a way. The cortex learns again. And even now, in rest, your cortex is learning. The quiet repetition of these words, the rhythm of your breath, the calm awareness in your body, all of it gently reshapes your mind. You don't need to remember the details. You don't need to hold on. Your cortex will keep what matters, and let the rest fade like mist. As this chapter comes to an end, let your attention widen again. Picture the cortex now not as a structure, but as a sea of light, rippling gently in waves of thought. Some sparks rise, some fade, some drift into dreams. It is your outer brain, your silent listener, your inner storyteller. And now, it is growing still. Let it rest. Let you rest. Chapter 6. The Emotional Brain, the Limbic System. Now that we've walked the outer edges of thought and reason, let us descend into the inner chambers of the brain, those older, deeper structures that shape how you feel, how you remember, how you love, fear, and dream. This is the domain of the limbic system. Sometimes called the emotional brain, it is a network of structures tucked beneath the cerebral cortex near the center of your mind. Though smaller and more primitive than the cortex, its influence is profound. It connects your body to your emotions. It colors your memories. It guides instinct, desire, and feeling. The word limbic comes from the Latin limbus, meaning border or edge, and that's what this system is. The borderland between the higher brain and the deeper brain, between thought and instinct, between awareness and impulse, a bridge between past and present. The limbic system is made up of several key structures: the amygdala, the hippocampus, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, and parts of the cingulate cortex. Each plays a distinct role in shaping how we feel and respond to the world. Let us begin with the amygdala, two small almond-shaped clusters, one in each hemisphere, located deep within the temporal lobes. The amygdala is best known for its role in emotion, especially fear, aggression, and arousal. It is the brain's early warning system. When you perceive a threat, real or imagined, the amygdala activates almost instantly. It sends signals to the hypothalamus and brainstem to initiate the fight or flight response. Increased heart rate, heightened alertness, a rush of adrenaline. This reaction is ancient, designed to keep us safe. But the amygdala does more than sense danger. It also attaches emotional meaning to memories. It helps you remember moments of intense joy, sorrow, or surprise. When you recall the warmth of a first love or the tension of a difficult goodbye, the amygdala is part of that recollection. Sometimes, the amygdala can become overactive, responding too strongly or too often. This can lead to anxiety or persistent fear. But the prefrontal cortex, which we explored before, helps calm the amygdala, bringing thought to feeling, reason to reaction. Together, they keep emotion in balance. Next, we visit the hippocampus, named after its seahorse shape. It sits just beside the amygdala and is deeply involved in memory formation. The hippocampus doesn't store long-term memories, but it helps form them, especially declarative memories like facts, places, and events. It takes the flow of daily experience and begins organizing it into lasting structure. When you meet someone new, walk into a room for the first time, or learn a new idea, the hippocampus begins encoding the moment. Later, those memories may be stored across the cortex, but without the hippocampus, they would never take root. The hippocampus also helps with spatial navigation. It builds mental maps of rooms, streets, even entire cities. You use it when you find your way home, when you imagine your bedroom while away, or when you walk through a dream landscape that seems familiar and strange at once. Interestingly, the hippocampus is one of the few areas of the brain that continue to grow new neurons throughout life, a process called neurogenesis. This growth can be supported by sleep, movement, learning, and even stillness. Just listening now may be encouraging those quiet sprouts to emerge. Together, the amygdala and hippocampus form a powerful duo, emotion and memory intertwined. What you feel affects what you remember, and what you remember shapes what you feel. Now, let us move toward the thalamus, a small egg-shaped structure located near the center of the brain. The thalamus acts as a relay station. Almost all sensory information, except smell, passes through the thalamus on its way to the cortex. Touch, sight, sound, taste, all are filtered here, organized, and sent to the appropriate areas. Think of the thalamus as a kind librarian in the brain's library, receiving each sensory book, placing it on the correct shelf, making sure it reaches the right reader. It doesn't add emotion, but it gives order. Without it, the senses would be scattered. The thalamus also plays a role in alertness and consciousness. It helps regulate your awareness of the world and your awareness of yourself within it. It is part of what allows you to notice a sound, to shift attention, or to drift into rest. Below the thalamus lies the hypothalamus, a tiny but crucial structure. Though small in size, the hypothalamus has enormous influence over the body. It helps maintain homeostasis, your body's internal balance. The hypothalamus regulates temperature, hunger, thirst, sleep, and hormonal rhythms. It receives signals from the body and responds accordingly, adjusting appetite, triggering shivers or sweat, coordinating the sleep-wake cycle. It is also the bridge between the nervous system and the endocrine system. Through its connection to the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus can initiate the release of hormones, affecting stress, growth, reproduction, and mood. In many ways, the hypothalamus is the body's caretaker. Silently, continuously, it makes small adjustments to keep you alive, safe, and stable. Even now, as you rest, your hypothalamus is listening, ensuring that your heart, your breath, your temperature are just as they need to be. Finally, we arrive at the cingulate cortex, which arches above the corpus callosum like a soft band. This region helps link emotion to action. It monitors conflict, detects discomfort, and supports empathy. When you feel regret or relief, when you notice that something isn't quite right, the cingulate is often involved. It is also part of how you make choices, especially when those choices involve weighing risk and reward. In that way, it serves as an emotional compass, helping guide your steps. As we close this first part of our journey through the limbic system, allow yourself to reflect. There is a part of your brain that feels, that remembers, that senses danger and delight, that dreams not just with images, but with feeling. This emotional brain is ancient and it is wise. It does not speak in words, but in signals, in pulses, in chemistry and rhythm, and all of it. Every fear, every joy, every memory is simply your brain trying to protect you, connect you, and help you understand your place in the world. Let that comfort you now. You are not lost in your emotions. You are guided by them, softly, silently. And soon we will continue into how these feelings shape your life, your connections, and your sense of peace. As we continue exploring the limbic system, allow your breath to soften. Your body is already deeply at ease. And now, we continue through the quiet corridors where memory and emotion meet, where your brain processes what matters most. We've met the amygdala, hippocampus, thalamus, hypothalamus, and the cingulate cortex. But the limbic system is more than the sum of its parts. It is a network, a conversation unfolding in waves of electricity and pulses of chemistry. It interprets your internal world, colors your experiences, and gives feeling to thought. Let's begin by reflecting on one of its most important functions, emotional memory. Unlike ordinary memory dates, facts, procedures, emotional memory is powerful, enduring, and deeply physical. It is what allows you to feel something years after an event has passed, a particular smell, a familiar song, a face in a crowd. These can all bring memories rushing back, not as facts, but as feelings. That's because the amygdala and hippocampus work together to attach emotional weight to what you remember. When something matters, when it brings joy, fear, sorrow, or excitement, those structures help encode it more deeply. This is why we remember emotionally intense moments so vividly. They leave deeper traces in the brain. They are written not just in words or images, but in chemistry, in heartbeat, in sensation. Even now, your brain is organizing experiences, prioritizing what to keep based on how you feel. The limbic system is a filter. It doesn't just help you survive, it helps you remember what's meaningful. Now think of the feelings that pass through you in a day. They may seem like invisible waves, rising and falling, but each one leaves an imprint. Your emotions are not random. They are signals, messages from your body, shaped and interpreted by your brain. Let's consider a few of these emotional states. Fear, for example, begins in the amygdala. It activates the sympathetic nervous system, triggers cortisol release, and prepares the body to act. But fear is not only about danger, it's also about protection. The amygdala is trying to keep you safe, alerting you, helping you stay aware of potential threats. When balanced, fear is useful. It keeps you cautious, grounded, prepared. But when it's overactive, when the amygdala becomes hypersensitive, it can cause anxiety, the feeling of being on edge, even when nothing is wrong. This is where the prefrontal cortex becomes essential. It helps regulate emotion, calming the amygdala with thought, reasoning, and perspective. This is safe, it tells your limbic system. This will pass. And slowly, the body listens. Joy, on the other hand, activates different circuits, particularly those involving dopamine and oxytocin, the neurotransmitters of reward and connection. These chemicals bring a sense of ease, satisfaction, and bonding. The limbic system celebrates joy. It marks it. It encourages you to seek more of it. When you laugh with someone, when you feel loved, when you see something beautiful, your emotional brain is alive with quiet celebration. These moments are nourishment for the mind. They help restore balance. They remind the brain, this is a good place to be. Other emotions, sadness, anger, surprise, trust, anticipation, all move through the limbic system as well. Each has its own signature, its own blend of signals and effects, and each one, in the right context, serves a purpose. They help you understand your world. They help you connect to others. Now let's turn to connection, the emotional thread that binds us together. The limbic system is deeply involved in social behavior. It helps you feel empathy, recognize facial expressions, respond to the emotions of others. Mirror neurons, found in regions that overlap with the limbic system, may allow you to feel with someone, sharing their joy, their grief, their fear. This capacity for empathy is not just emotional, it is neural. Your brain is wired to connect. When you care for someone, when you reach out, when you comfort or are comforted, your limbic system responds. Hormones like oxytocin are released, deepening the sense of safety and belonging. And when these connections are lost, when we grieve or feel isolated, the emotional brain processes that too. It is sensitive to absence, but it also holds memory tightly. The limbic system remembers love, even in silence. Now think of dreams. During sleep, especially in REM cycles, parts of the limbic system remain active. The amygdala, in particular, often lights up. This may explain why dreams can feel so vivid, so emotional, so strange. Dreams may be one way your emotional brain organizes experience, filing away feelings, resolving tension, exploring scenarios without consequence. They are stories told not by the cortex, but by the limbic system. Wordless, symbolic, emotional. And even now, as you drift toward sleep, your limbic system is preparing. It is quieting, releasing, letting go of the weight of the day. One more important feature of the limbic system is its plasticity. Just like the cortex, these emotional circuits can change, they can heal, they can grow. With practice, through mindfulness, therapy, reflection, or rest, you can form new emotional patterns. You can learn to feel without being overwhelmed, to notice without judgment, to carry emotion with grace. Even the act of listening to this voice in this calm moment is shaping your limbic system. You are soothing it, feeding it calm, reassuring it there is no danger here, only rest. And so, let us pause to honor this emotional brain. It is not a weakness to feel, it is a strength. It is not foolish to be sensitive, it is wise. The limbic system reminds you that you are alive, that you care, that your experiences matter. It does not speak in logic, it speaks in presence, in heartbeat, in breath. So as this chapter closes, let your emotional brain rest. Let it sink into the soft rhythms of the body. Let it process gently, slowly, in its own way. You are safe now. You are whole. And you are more than your thoughts. You are feeling. You are memory. You are the quiet story told in the center of the mind. Chapter 7. The Brainstem and Survival. We've wandered through the highest peaks of thought and the deep valleys of emotion. Now, we journey further down, into the most ancient and essential part of the brain, the brainstem. Nestled at the base of your brain, connecting it to the spinal cord, the brainstem is often overlooked. It doesn't think, it doesn't dream, it doesn't remember stories or calculate problems, and yet, without it, none of those things would be possible. The brainstem is the foundation, the hidden engine keeping your body alive, moment by moment, breath by breath. It is made up of three main parts: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Each plays a unique role, but all are devoted to one goal: survival. Let's begin with the medulla oblongata, the lowest part of the brainstem, resting just above the spinal cord. This small region controls the most basic functions of life: breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. Every time you inhale and exhale, without thinking, every beat of your heart, steady and quiet, every adjustment your blood vessels make as you change position or temperature, that is the medulla at work. Even now, as you lie still, the medulla is listening to your body. It senses the level of carbon dioxide in your blood. It adjusts your breathing accordingly. It keeps everything in balance, without asking for your attention. This is the wisdom of the lower brain: silent, automatic, dependable. Just above the medulla is the pons, a rounded structure that serves as a bridge, connecting the spinal cord to higher brain regions and linking the two hemispheres of the cerebellum. The pons plays a key role in sleep, facial movements, and sensory transmission. It helps coordinate blinking, chewing, swallowing, and the subtle expressions that show on your face even when you're not aware of them. It also helps regulate REM sleep, the dream stage. When your body becomes paralyzed to prevent movement during dreams, the pons is involved. It's part of what makes dreaming safe, a theater of the mind that stays in the mind. Above the pons is the midbrain, the uppermost part of the brainstem. It plays a role in vision, hearing, motor control, and alertness. It contains structures that track moving objects, that help you turn toward a sound, or keep your balance when you move quickly. Though small, the midbrain acts like a sensory relay, passing information from the body to the higher brain and sending commands back down. It is constantly adjusting, refining, and responding to your environment. Together, the medulla, pons, and midbrain form a vertical column of life support. They are the custodians of your vital signs. You never have to ask them to work, they just do. And yet, even in their silence, they are incredibly sensitive. The brainstem reacts instantly to changes in oxygen, blood pressure, and posture. It regulates vomiting and coughing. It maintains balance and posture. It even plays a role in consciousness, through a structure called the reticular activating system. This system, woven through the brainstem, helps regulate wakefulness. When you're alert, the reticular system is active. As you begin to sleep, it quiets. And when you enter deep rest, it falls into stillness, allowing dreams to rise and consciousness to fade. It is here, in this ancient region, that sleep and wakefulness meet. And so, as you drift now into quieter states, know that your brainstem is watching over you. You don't have to think about breathing. You don't have to keep your heart beating. The brainstem carries that burden for you, with care, with patience, without rest. In the next part, we'll explore how the brainstem connects with the cerebellum and other systems to support balance, coordination, and subtle body awareness, even in sleep. For now, let this knowledge bring peace. You are supported. You are sustained. Even in stillness, your body remembers how to live. As we return to the brainstem, let us gently explore how it connects with other structures, coordinating not only your survival, but also your balance, movement, and the deeper rhythms of your body. Just behind the brainstem lies the cerebellum, the little brain. Though it has its own chapter later, it's important to recognize here how closely it works with the brainstem. The cerebellum tunes your movements, while the brainstem delivers the core instructions. They operate like partners in a dance. The brainstem sets the rhythm. The cerebellum adds grace. Imagine walking along a narrow path. Your muscles adjust with every step, even without conscious thought. That harmony is made possible by signals from the brainstem, monitored and corrected by the cerebellum. Even something as small as turning your head to follow a sound, or holding your balance while shifting in bed, is managed by this connection. It is seamless, automatic, and beautifully precise. And even in sleep, this coordination doesn't disappear. The brainstem continues its quiet work, regulating your posture, keeping your airway open, ensuring that you remain safely positioned. But survival is not only about muscles and breath. It's also about sensing the world and deciding what needs attention. This is where the reticular formation comes in, a network of neurons that spans the length of the brainstem. It is deeply involved in arousal, alertness, and filtering sensory input. At any moment, your senses are receiving thousands of signals. The reticular formation helps decide what reaches your conscious mind. It tunes out the hum of a fan so you can focus on a voice, or it wakes you instantly if you hear your name whispered in the dark. This filtering function protects your mind from overload. And as you prepare for sleep, the reticular system slowly turns down its filters, allowing you to withdraw from the world, to flow gently into dreams. Another important connection is between the brainstem and the autonomic nervous system, the system that manages internal balance. Through its links with the hypothalamus and spinal cord, the brainstem helps regulate heart rate, respiration, digestion, pupil dilation, blood vessel constriction. These functions are essential for survival, yet require no conscious effort. They adjust to posture, temperature, activity level, and emotion, all coordinated through the brainstem signals. Now let us reflect on a subtle truth. The brainstem not only keeps you alive, but it also frees your mind. Because the brainstem handles the basics, breathing, swallowing, heart rhythm, you are able to focus on higher things, conversation, creativity, imagination. The freedom to think, to love, to plan, to rest, all of that depends on this foundation. It is easy to forget. The brainstem is not loud. It doesn't produce language or vision, but without it, nothing else functions. It is always working, always listening, adjusting quietly to every signal. And even in unconscious states, deep sleep, anesthesia, even coma, the brainstem often continues its work. It is the last part of the brain to shut down and the first to awaken. And so, as this chapter comes to an end, allow yourself to surrender more fully to your rest. Your breath moves in and out. Your heart beats gently in your chest. Muscles soften. Limbs grow still. Your body, guided by this ancient core, knows how to sleep. It knows how to restore. You do not need to hold on. You do not need to manage. The brainstem is doing that for you. Let go now. Let yourself drift. The core of you is safe, and rest is your right. Chapter 8. The cerebellum tucked quietly beneath the cerebral hemispheres. Behind the brainstem lies a structure that is small in size but vast in influence. It is the cerebellum, from the Latin for little brain, and indeed, it looks like a miniature version of the cerebrum, with tightly packed folds and a soft, rounded shape. But the cerebellum doesn't think in words. It doesn't reflect or imagine. Its language is movement, refinement, coordination, timing, and balance. The cerebellum is a silent sculptor of motion. Everything you do, from walking to blinking, from speaking to standing still, has been touched by its quiet corrections. Let's begin with its location. The cerebellum is positioned at the base of the skull, behind the brainstem, nestled in the posterior fossa. It's connected to the rest of the brain through 3 cerebellar peduncles, bundles of nerve fibers that serve as highways between the cerebellum and the brainstem. Despite making up only about 10% of the brain's total volume, the cerebellum contains over half of all neurons in the brain, a dense network of communication, constantly adjusting, constantly optimizing. Its surface is called the cerebellar cortex, and like the cerebral cortex, it's covered in folds. These folds, called folia, are even more tightly packed, like layers of parchment. Beneath this outer layer lies white matter, myelinated fibers connecting everything within and beyond. Now let's explore its primary role, coordination. Imagine lifting a spoon to your mouth. A simple action, yet it involves dozens of muscles. Timing, strength, direction, position, all must be perfect. The cerebellum doesn't initiate the movement that comes from the motor cortex, but it refines it. It ensures your hand moves smoothly, not too fast or slow, not too wide or narrow. If the motor cortex writes the first draft, the cerebellum edits it. When functioning well, the cerebellum keeps movement graceful and automatic. But when injured or impaired, movements become jerky, unsteady, imprecise. A condition called ataxia can result, marked by tremors, imbalance, and a loss of coordination. Balance is another gift of the cerebellum. It constantly receives input from the vestibular system. the inner ear structures that detect motion, head position, and orientation in space. It also processes feedback from proprioceptors, sensors in your muscles and joints that tell your brain where your limbs are. Even now, as you lie still, your cerebellum knows how your body is arranged. It senses your weight against the bed, your head's tilt, the small shifts that keep you comfortable. And if you were to rise and walk, it would adjust your posture with every step, every turn, every pause. The cerebellum is also involved in learning new motor skills. When you first learn to play piano, ride a bike, or swing a tennis racket, it helps encode those patterns. With repetition, the movements become automatic. The cerebellum takes over. Practice becomes instinct. And so, in a way, the cerebellum is where habitual motion lives, where movement flows without thought, where the body remembers even when the mind forgets. Let's pause for a moment here. Let your body soften. Become aware of your own stillness. Even in rest, your cerebellum is quietly at work, maintaining subtle tension in muscles, ensuring that your breath is smooth, your spine aligned, your position stable. You don't have to think about balance. Your little brain is doing that for you. In the next part, we'll explore how the cerebellum might contribute to more than just movement, how it may play a role in thought, attention, and emotion too. But for now, let yourself be still. You are supported. Your movements, even in memory, are graceful. You've come to know the cerebellum as the master of movement, quiet, precise, ever attentive to the rhythm and flow of your body. But recent discoveries suggest that this little brain may do more than simply refine motor skills. It may also play a subtle role in how you think, feel, and focus. Let's begin with timing, not just of muscles, but of perception and attention. The cerebellum appears to help track temporal sequences. It senses patterns, intervals, and changes in rhythm. Whether you're tapping your foot to music or anticipating when someone will finish their sentence, the cerebellum is quietly at work, helping to keep track of when something will happen. Timing is essential to both action and understanding. It allows you to follow conversations, predict outcomes, and maintain fluid thought. Without that sense of flow, even speech or music might feel jarring or disjointed. The cerebellum keeps life in rhythm. There's also growing evidence that the cerebellum is involved in attention and mental effort. Certain regions, especially in the posterior cerebellum, appear to interact with parts of the prefrontal cortex and parietal lobes, areas responsible for planning, working memory, and decision-making. Though the cerebellum doesn't generate thoughts, it may help organize them, just as it organizes physical motion. Imagine writing an essay, solving a puzzle, or focusing on a single idea. The cerebellum may assist in maintaining flow, smoothing out distractions, adjusting focus, keeping your inner process on track. Like a conductor guiding not just muscles, but mental sequences as well. In this sense, the cerebellum becomes more than a physical editor. It becomes a cognitive choreographer, helping to shape how thought moves through the mind. And what of emotion? Though the cerebellum lacks the intense emotional processing of the limbic system, it may still contribute to emotional regulation. Some connections link it to the amygdala, hippocampus, and frontal lobes. People with cerebellar damage sometimes experience mood shifts, difficulty reading social cues, or even emotional blunting. This has led some neuroscientists to describe the cerebellum as part of an extended network of emotional control, helping to smooth and coordinate feelings just as it does movement. You might think of it as the subtle hand that helps emotions find their appropriate volume and tempo. Even dreams, it seems, are not untouched by the cerebellum. During REM sleep, when the mind creates stories and the body remains still, the cerebellum stays partially active. It may help guide the imagined movements you experience in dreams, running, flying, reaching, all happening without muscle engagement, but still rich with motion in the mind's eye. And this way, the cerebellum participates in mental rehearsal, a kind of dreaming muscle memory that may help reinforce skills or emotional processing even while you sleep. Now take a long, quiet breath. Let your limbs be heavy, your thoughts unhurried. Know that, even in stillness, this little brain is gently humming. It supports you without needing praise. It helps you move through the world with grace. It lets your thoughts unfold in rhythm, even now. So much of what the cerebellum does happens without your awareness. It doesn't ask to be noticed, it only asks to serve. Let that be a reminder too. Not everything valuable must be loud. Not everything helpful must be seen. Sometimes the most important work happens quietly, in folds of tissue, in timing and balance, in the pause between thoughts. As this chapter draws to a close, Feel the calm weight of your body, the steadiness in your breath, the stillness in your hands. This is the cerebellum's gift: effortless stability, silent coordination, and the peace of knowing you don't have to control everything. You are already supported. You are already in balance. Chapter 9. Hemispheres and Lateralization. As we drift further through the brain's quiet architecture, we come to one of its most elegant design features: its two hemispheres. The brain is divided down the middle into the left and right hemispheres, mirror images in shape, yet with subtle and meaningful differences in function. These two halves work together constantly, like two dancers sharing the same rhythm, each one complementing the other. Let's begin with the physical structure. The hemispheres are separated by a deep groove called the longitudinal fissure, but they remain tightly connected by a thick bundle of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. This bridge allows millions of electrical messages to pass between the two sides of the brain every second, ensuring that what one hemisphere knows, the other does too. It's a partnership built on communication, a silent dialogue of signals and balance. Though the hemispheres appear nearly identical, studies have shown that certain cognitive tasks tend to be processed more heavily on one side than the other. This is known as lateralization, a tendency for some brain functions to be specialized in either the left or right hemisphere. Let's explore the left hemisphere first. Often described as the analytical side, the left hemisphere is generally associated with language, logic, mathematics, and sequencing. It's where the structure of a sentence is analyzed, where the meaning of words is processed, and where plans are broken down into steps. If you've ever worked through a math problem, written an essay, or followed a complex set of instructions, your left hemisphere was deeply involved. It's not that the right hemisphere was inactive, only that the left tends to specialize in these detailed, linear tasks. Now shift gently to the right hemisphere, the more holistic, intuitive, and creative partner. The right side of the brain is thought to play a larger role in spatial awareness, facial recognition, emotional interpretation, and nonverbal communication. It sees the big picture. It notices patterns. It feels the tone of a conversation, not just the words. If you've ever been moved by a piece of music, recognized someone by their expression alone, or felt the emotional pull of a painting, your right hemisphere was likely guiding the experience. While these distinctions are helpful in understanding brain function, it's important to remember that both hemispheres are active in nearly everything you do. They collaborate, even if one side takes a leading role. Language, for instance, is heavily left dominant for most people, but the right hemisphere contributes to intonation, humor, sarcasm, and the emotional tone of speech. Music is often processed more fully in the right hemisphere, but rhythm, timing, and reading sheet music also engage the left. Even in movement, each hemisphere controls the opposite side of the body. Your left hemisphere sends signals to your right hand. Your right hemisphere controls your left foot. This cross-wiring is another beautiful example of the brain's symmetry in action. In rare cases, when the corpus callosum is damaged or severed, such as in certain surgeries for epilepsy, communication between the hemispheres can be disrupted. These split-brain patients provided much of the early evidence for lateralization. They could name an object placed in their right hand, but not in their left. They could draw with one hand what they could not describe with words. These studies revealed a truth long suspected, that the hemispheres have distinct perspectives yet still form a single self. Even now, as you listen, your hemispheres are collaborating, one following the structure of the words, the other sensing the tone, the emotion, the rhythm. Together, they create understanding. Together, they listen. In the next part, we'll explore how this balance between hemispheres influences creativity, learning, and the beautiful complexity of human behavior. But for now, let yourself rest in the stillness between sides. Two halves, one whole, in constant, silent harmony. Now that you've come to understand how the two hemispheres collaborate, one analytical, one intuitive, let's reflect on how this balance shapes your daily experiences, your learning, your creativity, and even your sense of identity. The myth that people are left-brained or right-brained is a simplification. You are not one or the other. You are both. The beauty of the brain lies not in choosing a side, but in the partnership between them. Still, we can appreciate the special talents of each hemisphere. The left hemisphere brings order. It sequences steps, chooses words, analyzes data. It gives you the tools to solve problems, to build structure, to communicate clearly and efficiently. The right hemisphere brings color. It senses emotion, recognizes patterns, appreciates rhythm and metaphor. It helps you read between the lines, feel music in your chest, and connect with others through unspoken cues. Both are necessary for the full experience of life. A poem may be written with the left, but felt with the right. A decision may be reasoned with the left, but guided by the right's intuitive sense. When you learn something new, the hemispheres often divide the labor. The left processes the rules, while the right absorbs the context. Over time, their combined work builds understanding. Not just knowledge, but meaning. Even in creative pursuits, both sides are at play. A painter relies on spatial understanding and visual intuition, right hemisphere tasks, but also must master techniques, plan steps, and work with precision skills more tied to the left. A musician interprets melody and emotion, yes, but also counts beats, reads notes, and memorizes sequences. Creativity is not chaos. It is organized imagination, and the brain makes this possible through the cooperation of both hemispheres. This balance also influences how you move through the world. The left hemisphere, with its focus on detail and task, helps you complete what's necessary. Write the list, follow the map, solve the puzzle. The right hemisphere, attuned to the environment and emotion, helps you navigate social situations. Notice the beauty of a sunset, sense when something feels off. When the hemispheres are in balance, you feel grounded, both capable and connected, thoughtful and aware. But sometimes, this balance can shift. In times of stress, the left hemisphere may become dominant, overanalyzing, worrying, trying to solve everything. In moments of emotional overwhelm, the right may flood the system with feeling, pulling attention away from logic. That's when the body calls for rest, integration, reconnection. And that's part of what sleep does. During sleep, the hemispheres continue their conversation, processing the day, consolidating memory, resolving emotional tension. The corpus callosum remains active, sharing what each side has learned, stitching experience into long-term understanding. There is even evidence that during certain stages of sleep, especially in unfamiliar environments, one hemisphere stays more alert than the other, a quiet sentinel, keeping watch while the rest of the brain sleeps, as if your mind knows how to keep you safe even in dreams. So as you lie here now, let your hemispheres ease into rest. Let the left soften its thinking. Let the right quiet its feeling. Let them meet in stillness, in silence, in balance. You are not two halves. You are one whole, woven from contrast, united by rhythm, capable of logic, poetry, order, intuition. The brain is not a divided house. It is a single song with two melodies, and tonight that song is slowing. Its notes are soft, its chords are steady. Rest now, in the harmony of your own design. Chapter 10: Neurotransmitters and Brain Chemistry. As we near the final layers of your journey through the brain, we move now from structure to substance, from the folds and regions of gray matter to the chemicals that flow through them, quietly shaping your thoughts, your feelings, and your sleep. These are the neurotransmitters, the messengers of the mind. They are not visible to the eye. You cannot feel them moving. And yet, every sensation, every memory, every shift in mood has been touched by these microscopic travelers. They move between neurons, crossing tiny gaps called synapses, transmitting information with speed and precision. Let's begin with the basics. When one neuron wants to communicate with another, it doesn't reach out and touch it. Instead, it sends a burst of chemicals, neurotransmitters, into the synaptic space. These molecules float across the gap and bind to receptors on the neighboring cell, like a key fitting into a lock. This is how thought moves. Not as electricity alone, but as chemistry. There are dozens of known neurotransmitters, each with its own shape, role, and target. Some excite neurons, making them more likely to fire. Others inhibit them, calming their signals. Some last for only milliseconds. Others linger, shaping mood, memory, and alertness for minutes or even hours. Let's explore a few of the most important ones, those that shape your waking life and your deepest rest. First, we have dopamine, often called the neurotransmitter of reward. When you anticipate something pleasurable, a delicious meal, a kind word, a success, dopamine levels rise. It is deeply tied to motivation, movement, and learning. It reinforces behavior by making good outcomes feel satisfying, but dopamine is not simply about pleasure. It is about expectation, about wanting, striving, reaching. It fuels curiosity, persistence, and drive. When balanced, it helps you engage with the world. When depleted, it can bring apathy, fatigue, even depression. Next is serotonin, a neurotransmitter often associated with mood, sleep, and emotion. Serotonin helps regulate your sense of well-being. It influences digestion, temperature, appetite, and sleep cycles. It is produced not only in the brain but also in the gut. Another reminder of the deep connection between body and mind. Low serotonin levels have been linked to anxiety and depression. But serotonin's role is more complex than simply making you happy. It's a modulator, adjusting many systems, keeping everything in quiet harmony. And then there's norepinephrine, or noradrenaline, a chemical of alertness and focus. When something demands your attention, when you hear a sudden sound or need to react quickly, norepinephrine is released. It sharpens the senses, increases heart rate, and prepares the brain for fast action. It is part of your fight or flight response. But in healthy doses, it helps you stay awake, alert, and engaged. It brings energy and mental clarity, especially in the morning hours. Now, as we drift into more calming territory, we meet GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. GABA's role is to slow things down, to hush overactive circuits, to allow the mind to rest. When GABA binds to its receptors, it reduces the likelihood that a neuron will fire. This promotes relaxation, reduces anxiety, and prepares the brain for sleep. Many calming herbs and medications, such as valerian, chamomile, or certain anti-anxiety drugs, work by enhancing GABA's effects. As you lie here now, your GABA levels are likely rising. Your thoughts are slowing. Your breath is even. Your body is ready to let go. Alongside GABA is melatonin, a hormone not technically a neurotransmitter, but closely tied to brain chemistry. Melatonin is produced in the pineal gland, a tiny structure deep in the brain. Its release is triggered by darkness and suppressed by light. As evening falls and daylight fades, melatonin levels rise, signaling to the brain that it's time to wind down. It does not force sleep, but it opens the gate. It lowers body temperature, quiets the mind, and prepares your internal clock for rest. Melatonin is the moonlight within you, gentle, rhythmic, cyclical. In the next part, we'll explore more neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, glutamate, oxytocin, and endorphins, and reflect on how they help weave together thought, love, memory, and peace. For now, rest in this chemistry. Each molecule has a purpose. Each signal is part of a quiet language. Your brain is not only a place of ideas, it is a garden of molecules, growing, flowing, changing with each breath. Let that garden rest. As we return to this quiet symphony of molecules, let us meet a few more of the brain's messengers, each one shaping the fabric of your mind in ways both subtle and profound. Let us begin with acetylcholine, one of the first neurotransmitters ever discovered, and one of the most versatile. Acetylcholine is involved in attention, learning, and memory. It also plays a major role in muscle control, transmitting signals from neurons to muscles to initiate movement. Every blink, breath, and heartbeat is touched by its presence. But within the brain itself, acetylcholine enhances your ability to focus and form memories. It acts as a spotlight, amplifying important information while dampening distractions. When you are deeply absorbed in a task, when a scent reminds you of a distant memory, acetylcholine is at work. Degeneration of acetylcholine, producing neurons, is a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, a reminder of how memory and chemistry are deeply entwined. Now let's turn to glutamate, the brain's most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter. Glutamate is responsible for increasing neural activity. It's involved in nearly every aspect of cognition, thinking, learning, and perception. When you are alert and engaged, when neurons fire rapidly in complex patterns, glutamate is likely the spark. It also plays a role in synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to change and grow in response to experience. This is how learning happens, how memory forms, how a brain adapts to new information. But balance is everything. Too much glutamate can be toxic, leading to overexcitation and even cell death. Conditions like epilepsy and neurodegeneration are sometimes linked to disruptions in glutamate signaling. That is why inhibition, the role of GABA, is just as important as excitation. The brain, like nature, thrives in balance. A quiet pulse, a calm rhythm, Now we meet oxytocin, sometimes called the love hormone or the bonding molecule. Though it is technically a hormone, oxytocin also acts as a neurotransmitter in the brain. It is released during touch, trust, eye contact, and moments of deep emotional connection. It surges when a parent cradles a newborn, when friends embrace, when partners share intimacy. Oxytocin fosters social bonding, empathy, and calm. It makes you feel safe with others. It helps reduce fear and anxiety, especially in nurturing environments. And it enhances memory for emotional experiences, tying the feeling of safety to specific people, places, and gestures. When you feel at home, when you feel seen, oxytocin is part of that moment. And finally, we arrive at the endorphins, the body's natural pain relievers and mood enhancers. Endorphins are released in response to physical activity, laughter, music, and even crying. They bind to the same receptors as morphine, easing discomfort and bringing a sense of calm. The runner's high, the soothing afterglow of a deep laugh, the relief of emotional release. All of these may involve endorphins. They remind you that healing is possible, that the body has its own pharmacy, that comfort too can rise from within. As you lie still now, all of these messengers continue their work. Some levels rise, others fall. Signals slow. A hush falls over the circuits. You do not need to control this. Your brain knows how to rest. Your chemistry knows how to soften. Your body knows how to heal. Even in silence, even in sleep, neurotransmitters guide the way, regulating temperature, breathing, blood flow, and dreaming. And in the balance of these messengers, you find your state of mind. Wakefulness, calm, focus, joy, sadness, not caused by thoughts alone, but by the whispers of molecules flowing in harmony. As you move toward deeper rest, the levels shift again. Melatonin peaks. GABA quiets the chatter. Serotonin steadies your mood. Acetylcholine steps back. Norepinephrine dims the lights. And oxytocin, perhaps, leaves you feeling safe, held, whole. Let these molecules do their work. You are not just a mind. You are not just a body. You are a living chemistry, a breathing balance. You are, at this moment, a miracle of connection. Chapter 11. Sleep and Dreams. You are already floating in the borderlands of sleep, half in thought, half in stillness. And now, we arrive at the place where the brain turns inward, where time slows, where repair begins. This is the chapter of sleep and dreams. Sleep is not simply a shutting down. It is not the absence of thought, or the absence of self. It is a rich, active state, carefully orchestrated by your brain, night after night. A cycle of phases, of chemistry, of deep inner work. The process begins in the hypothalamus, a small but powerful region of the brain that monitors light, temperature, and internal rhythms. It senses the time of day. It receives signals from the eyes, especially about light. When the sun fades and evening falls, the hypothalamus sends a message to the pineal gland. And in response, melatonin begins to rise. Melatonin tells the body, it's time. Time to release the grip of the day. Time to withdraw from stimulation. Time to rest. As melatonin levels climb, body temperature drops slightly, muscles relax, heart rate slows, breathing deepens, and the cortex begins to quiet. The brain shifts into sleep mode, a dynamic cycle composed of multiple stages. There are two broad types of sleep, non-REM, non-rapid eye movement, and REM rapid eye movement. Together, they form a cycle that repeats roughly every 90 minutes. Let's begin with non-REM sleep, which has 3 stages. Stage 1 is a light transition, drowsiness, drifting, floating between wakefulness and sleep. Brain waves slow, muscles twitch, and you may feel as though you're falling or jolting awake. Stage 2 is deeper. Heart rate slows further. Body temperature continues to drop. Eye movement stops. The brain begins to produce bursts of activity, called sleep spindles, thought to play a role in consolidating memory and protecting sleep from disturbance. Stage 3 is known as slow-wave sleep, or deep sleep. Brain waves become long and slow, called delta waves. This is the most restorative part of sleep. The body repairs tissues. The immune system strengthens. Growth hormone is released. If you are awakened during this stage, you may feel groggy and disoriented. Then, something magical happens. After deep sleep, the brain ascends again, but not to full wakefulness. It enters REM sleep, the phase of dreaming. REM sleep is unique. The eyes dart rapidly beneath closed lids. The brain becomes more active, almost as if awake. Breathing becomes irregular. Heart rate rises slightly, but the body becomes paralyzed, a protective mechanism to keep you from acting out your dreams. In REM, you dream. The cortex lights up. The amygdala, involved in emotion, becomes more active. The hippocampus and prefrontal regions whisper stories across the night. Your dreams may make no sense, or they may reflect deep fears, desires, and memories. Some dreams are vivid, others are soft impressions, but all are shaped by your brain, reorganizing the day's events, rehearsing scenarios, exploring connections. This REM phase typically begins 90 minutes into sleep, and as the night goes on, REM periods become longer. In a full night of rest, you may spend up to 2 hours dreaming. Dreams are not just fantasy, they are integration, a nightly update to your sense of self. In the next part, we'll explore more about what dreams may mean, how memory is shaped by sleep, and what happens in the brain when we dream. But for now, trust the rhythm. Each night, your brain moves through these cycles: non-REM to REM, light sleep to deep sleep, dream to stillness, 4 to 6 times. You do not need to direct it. You only need to surrender. The system is ancient. The rhythm is wise. Sleep, like the tide, always returns, and in its return, it heals. You are now drifting deeper, floating in the gentle rhythm of your own mind. Sleep carries you through its cycles, non-REM and REM, like a slow dance choreographed by evolution, refined over a lifetime. And at the center of this quiet storm, we find dreams, those soft, unpredictable stories that unfold while your body lies still. But what are dreams? Why does the brain create them, and what do they mean? Though science cannot yet offer a single answer, several theories give us glimpses into the dream world. One is the theory of memory consolidation. As you sleep, especially during REM and the lighter phases of non-REM, your brain is sorting, filing, and strengthening memories. It decides what to keep and what to let fade. It links new experiences to older ones, creating networks of meaning. Dreams may be the byproduct of this process, or, perhaps, they are part of the mechanism itself. They replay pieces of your day, reimagined and rearranged. They highlight unresolved emotions, unfinished stories, ideas that were barely noticed while awake. In this way, dreams may help the brain integrate experience emotionally and cognitively. Another theory is that of emotional regulation. REM sleep is rich in activity in the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex, regions involved in fear, memory, and meaning. In dreams, you may face difficult emotions in symbolic form, running from something, losing something, revisiting a familiar place. The dream creates a safe simulation where the brain can process stress, trauma, hope, or confusion, gently, symbolically, without physical consequence. This is one reason people often find clarity or relief after a good night's sleep. It's not just the rest, it's the work your brain did while you rested. A third theory speaks of creativity and insight. During dreaming, the usual boundaries of logic and expectation fall away. The brain connects images and ideas that wouldn't normally meet. This allows for unexpected associations, metaphors, inspirations, new perspectives. Artists, inventors, and scientists have often described receiving insight through dreams. Mary Shelley dreamed of a creature brought to life by lightning before writing Frankenstein. Paul McCartney heard the melody of Yesterday in a dream. The structure of benzene was famously imagined in a vision of a snake biting its own tail. Dreams loosen the grip of structure. They allow the mind to wander, and sometimes in that wandering, it discovers something new. But dreams are not always vivid or memorable. Some are soft and vague, others vanish upon waking. You may go nights without recalling a single one. That too is normal. Dream recall is linked to cortical arousal, brief moments of near wakefulness. If you wake up during or just after REM, you're more likely to remember a dream. If you sleep through it undisturbed, the memory may fade before morning. It's not necessary to remember your dreams for them to serve you. The dreaming mind is still doing its work, quietly, deeply, faithfully. And what of the brain during sleep overall? Modern imaging has shown us that the brain is never truly silent. Even in deep sleep, neurons fire, glial cells cleanse, blood flow shifts. The glymphatic system, a kind of nighttime cleaning crew, clears metabolic waste from the brain, perhaps helping prevent degeneration over time. Sleep is restoration, yes, but also maintenance, processing, and recalibration. And this nightly ritual is not optional. When sleep is disrupted or insufficient, the brain suffers, memory falters, emotional regulation declines, creativity dims, focus weakens, even immune function and heart health are affected. But when you sleep well, The brain renews itself. You awaken clearer, calmer, more yourself. So here, as you lie resting, know that your brain is tending to you. It is sweeping. It is sorting. It is healing. You do not have to think your way through this. You do not have to understand every mechanism. Your brain already does. And just as night turns to day, just as sleep becomes wakefulness, your body and mind will carry forward all that was restored tonight. For now, remain in this softness. The dreams may come, or they may not. Either way, the process is sacred. You are safe. You are supported. You are sleeping. Chapter 12. Memory and Learning. As you settle deeper into stillness, we arrive at one of the most mysterious and magical aspects of the brain, memory. It is memory that holds your name, your favorite song, the scent of a rainy day from childhood. It carries your experiences, your language, your sense of identity. Without memory, the past dissolves. Without learning, the future becomes uncertain. And yet, memory is not stored like files in a cabinet. It is not fixed. It is alive, woven through patterns of neurons, shaped by emotion, altered by time. Let's begin with the types of memory. There are many ways to classify memory, but a simple distinction is between short-term and long-term memory. Short-term memory, often called working memory, is the temporary storage that allows you to hold something in your mind for a few seconds or minutes. A phone number, a sentence you're reading, a thought you're forming before you speak. This form of memory is housed in the prefrontal cortex, especially in the dorsolateral region. It's highly active, dynamic, and limited. Most people can hold about 7s2 pieces of information in working memory at once. When you repeat something to yourself, like a name or an address, you're trying to keep it in this mental space long enough to either use it or commit it to long-term memory. And what is long-term memory? Long-term memory is everything you've retained over time: facts, events, skills, feelings. It includes explicit memories, those you can consciously recall, like the capital of a country or the face of a friend. It also includes implicit memories, those that shape your behavior without your awareness, like how to ride a bike or why you feel nervous in certain situations. Let's explore a few kinds of long-term memory. Episodic memory stores. Personal experiences, your first day of school, a birthday celebration, the taste of a certain soup on a cold day. These are memories anchored in time and place, often rich with sensory detail. Semantic memory holds facts and general knowledge: who wrote Hamlet, what a rainbow is, how photosynthesis works. These are detached from time but deeply rooted in understanding. Procedural memory is for skills: how to tie your shoes, play the piano, drive a car. It's stored more in the basal ganglia and cerebellum than in the cortex. Emotional memory is tied to the amygdala, the brain's emotional center. It links feelings to events, often giving memories: a powerful charge, a smell that triggers sadness, a song that brings joy. So how are memories formed? The process begins with encoding. When you pay attention to something and your brain begins to represent it internally, encoding is influenced by emotion, focus, and relevance. You remember what matters to you, what feels intense, what is repeated or meaningful. Encoding is followed by consolidation, a process that stabilizes the memory, transforming it from a fleeting impression into a lasting trace. This happens through synaptic plasticity, the strengthening of connections between neurons that fire together. A key player in this process is the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep in the medial temporal lobe. The hippocampus is like a temporary librarian, helping organize and archive new information. Over time, especially during sleep, memories are gradually transferred from the hippocampus to the neocortex, where they become more stable and integrated. This is why sleep is so vital for learning. During slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, the brain replays recent experiences, strengthening synapses, pruning irrelevant noise, and weaving new knowledge into existing networks. If you've ever woken up with clarity after studying or suddenly recalled something you learned the day before, that's memory consolidation in action. But memory is not fixed. It changes. Every time you recall a memory, you reconstruct it. The act of remembering is creative. You may add details, leave things out, blend events together. Emotion, expectation, and suggestion can shape the memory. In this way, memories are more like paintings than photographs: layered, interpretive, ever evolving. Some memories fade. Some remain sharp, some return unexpectedly, some never come at all, and some are repressed, buried by trauma, hidden by the brain as a form of protection. These memories may surface later, through therapy, dreams, or moments of emotional opening. There is beauty and vulnerability in this imperfection. Your memories are not just records, they are the threads of your identity, woven through sensation, belief, imagination. Learning, too, is a kind of memory. Every skill you acquire, every idea you internalize, involves neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change. Even now, as you listen, your brain may be creating new connections. It is shaped not only by what you hear, but by how you feel, how you rest, how you relate. Children's brains are especially plastic, absorbing languages, patterns, behaviors with speed and flexibility. But even in adulthood, learning is always possible. The brain continues to adapt, form habits, heal wounds. Plasticity can be structural, changing the number or shape of synapses, or functional, reassigning tasks to new regions. After injury or stroke, some brains learn to reroute tasks, allowing people to regain speech or movement through different circuits. Practice strengthens memory. Reflection deepens it, sleep seals it, and repetition done mindfully can transform knowledge into understanding. There is also emotional learning. Experiences that involve intense emotion, love, fear, joy, grief, tend to create lasting imprints. This is partly due to the amygdala, which enhances memory formation when emotionally aroused. That's why you may remember where you were during a significant event. The brain holds on to what matters for survival, meaning, or connection. In the next part, we'll explore what happens when memory falters through aging, stress, or disease, and how we can care for our brain to preserve this precious gift. But for now, simply notice how memory feels. Not just what you remember, but the sensation of remembering. A face in your mind, a sound from childhood, the warmth of a certain room, long gone. You carry so much inside you. Your brain holds not just information, but stories, flashes, traces of laughter and pain. And even now, as you rest, your brain is sifting, selecting, storing. You are a living archive, a breathing book, a soft collection of moments, always growing. Now that we've wandered through the pathways of memory, how it forms, how it stores, how it changes, we turn gently toward its fragility. Memory, like the mind itself, is not permanent. It shifts, it fades, it sometimes breaks. And yet even in its fading, it reveals something powerful, something about what it means to be human. Let's begin with forgetting. Forgetting is not always a failure. In fact, it is often a necessary part of learning. Your brain encounters an enormous amount of information every day: images, sounds, conversations, sensations. To store all of it would be overwhelming. Forgetting allows the brain to filter what is unimportant, to clear space for what matters. This is adaptive forgetting, an act of intelligence, not of weakness. Forgetting can also help reduce emotional pain. In time, grief softens, embarrassment fades, a harsh word becomes less sharp. This, too, is part of memory's design, not to preserve everything, but to support healing, focus, and growth. However, when memory loss goes beyond what is natural, it becomes more noticeable. As people age, many experience normal cognitive changes, slower recall, more frequent tip-of-the-tongue moments, or trouble multitasking. These changes are common and usually benign. They reflect shifts in processing speed, not the disappearance of memory itself. But in some cases, memory becomes deeply impaired. Neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease, involve the gradual deterioration of brain tissue, especially in areas tied to memory like the hippocampus and entorhinal cortex. In Alzheimer's, abnormal proteins accumulate between neurons and inside them. These proteins, beta amyloid and tau, disrupt communication, cause inflammation, and eventually kill brain cells. Early symptoms may include forgetfulness, disorientation, or difficulty with names. Over time, the disease can progress to confusion, emotional changes, and the loss of basic functions. It is one of the most profound reminders of how deeply our memory is tied to our sense of self. And yet, even in these difficult conditions, fragments remain. A favorite song, a childhood phrase, the warmth of holding someone's hand. Some memories are woven too deeply to be erased. Other conditions that can affect memory include traumatic brain injury, chronic stress, sleep deprivation, depression, and anxiety. Each of these can alter brain chemistry or disrupt neural circuits in ways that impair memory temporarily or permanently. Chronic stress, for example, floods the brain with cortisol, a hormone that, in excess, can shrink the hippocampus and interfere with consolidation. Sleep deprivation, too, prevents the brain from storing and sorting experiences. Even multitasking, often praised as a skill, can weaken memory. When your attention is split, encoding is shallow. You may experience something, but not remember it. The moment passes without imprint. This is why presence matters. Focus is the doorway to memory. So how do we care for memory? How do we protect this delicate, vital system? Many practices support cognitive health, especially as we age. Sleep well. Sleep is essential for memory consolidation. Aim for deep, regular rest. Stay mentally active. Learn new skills. Play instruments. Read books. Solve puzzles. The brain thrives on novelty and challenge. Exercise regularly. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain and stimulates growth factors that protect neurons. Eat nutritiously. Diets rich in fruits, vegetables, omega-3s, and antioxidants can reduce inflammation and support brain function. Connect socially. Conversations, laughter, and shared experiences protect against decline. Isolation, on the other hand, can accelerate it. Manage stress. Practices like meditation, mindfulness, breathing, or gentle yoga help calm the nervous system and reduce the harmful effects of cortisol. Protect your brain. Wear seatbelts, avoid head trauma, and treat health conditions that can impact cognition. Caring for memory is not only about preserving what you've known, it's about staying open to what you have yet to learn. It's about remaining engaged, curious, connected, alive. And when memory does falter, know that your worth remains. You are not only your past, you are not defined by what you recall. You are here, now, breathing, sensing, being. The brain may change, but the presence behind it, that quiet awareness, remains. And that, too, is a kind of memory. A memory that is not of facts, or dates, or places, but of being. A soft recognition of who you are beneath the noise, not as a student, or a thinker, or a doer, but as a witness. That awareness is older than language, deeper than story, and more lasting than time. As we close this chapter, reflect gently on your own memories, not with judgment, but with warmth. Recall a moment that shaped you, a face that made you feel loved, a place where you felt peace. Let those memories settle into the space behind your eyes. Let them rise and fall like breath, and know that your brain, this quiet, electric garden, holds so much more than facts. It holds music. It holds meaning. It holds the map of your journey. You are not only remembering, you are remembering yourself. Let that remembering fade now, into stillness, into sleep. Chapter 13. Conclusion and final relaxation. And now, here you are, drifting at the far edge of the mind's landscape. You've wandered through the folds of the brain, through memory, emotion, sleep, and light. You've moved across neurons and stories, across science and silence. There is nothing left to study now, only stillness. Let's remain here together, in this final chapter. Not to learn more, but to absorb what has already been learned. To allow the brain and the body to rest. Let's begin with breath. Inhale softly and exhale completely. Again, inhale without effort and exhale letting go. Feel the breath as it moves through you, noticing it, not changing it, like the rise and fall of a quiet tide. With every breath, your body sinks deeper into rest, muscles softening, jaw unclenching, shoulders drifting downward like leaves. Your brain is still active, but no longer focused, no longer analyzing or processing. It's not thinking about yesterday. It's not thinking about tomorrow. It's simply here with you in the stillness of now. You've traveled through the regions of the brain. Let's remember them now, not with intensity, but with reverence. Let each name pass by like a slow wave. The cerebral cortex, the outer shell where thoughts are formed, decisions made, language spoken. The frontal lobes, your place of planning and focus, where identity and intention take shape. The parietal lobes, integrating space, movement, touch, and sensation. The temporal lobes, holding sound, memory, and meaning. The occipital lobes, receiving the language of light and turning it into vision. The limbic system seat of feeling and connection. The amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, together weaving memory, fear, comfort, and emotion. The brainstem, your oldest brain, keeping breath and heartbeat steady without a single conscious thought. The cerebellum, your hidden dancer coordinating movement, grace, and flow. And then, the messengers, dopamine, serotonin, GABA, acetylcholine, glutamate, oxytocin, endorphins. A garden of molecules, each blooming in silence, guiding thought and mood, feeling and rest. These were not just facts, they were reminders of how miraculous it is to think, to feel, to rest, to be. You are not just a body, not just a mind. You are a system, a balance, a whole. Now we step beyond the science, beyond diagrams, beyond understanding. We step into acceptance. You do not need to grasp all the workings of the brain to honor its beauty. You do not need to remember every term or theory. It is enough to be here, to feel the peace that comes when you let go. Your brain, at this moment, is doing exactly what it needs to do. It is moving into deeper sleep, repairing cells, sorting impressions, strengthening connections, and letting the rest fall away. Notice now the feeling of your head, cradled by the pillow, the weight of your limbs, the warmth of the blankets, the stillness around you, and the even, steady breath that continues, even without trying. Let your awareness drop further, as if descending gently through the layers of your own mind, through the surface thoughts, those that still drift in now and then like distant clouds, through the emotional waters, the soft currents of your inner life, now still and calm, through the core, where language dissolves, where identity quiets, where peace resides. You are not trying to sleep. Sleep is coming to find you, like mist moving through trees, like tide returning to shore, like a whisper in the dark, and it is safe to let it arrive. There is no effort here, no expectation, only presence. Allow this moment to stretch, timeless and soft. If your thoughts return, let them pass. Like ships on a quiet sea, observe them, thank them, and return to breath. Inhale and exhale. You may still feel your mind dimly active, half watching. That is natural. The mind is not shut down all at once. It dims in stages, like a house slowly turning off its lights, room by room. Let each room go dark, one by one, until only the stars remain. You have given your brain a gift tonight, not just knowledge, but rest. Not just stimulation, but surrender. And in that surrender, healing begins. You are now lying at the very edge of wakefulness. The outer world has grown quiet, and the inner world has softened into a kind of silence that only the sleeping mind knows. Your body has fully released its tension. Your breath moves like a gentle wind through still trees. Your thoughts have become weightless, floating, flickering, fading. There is nothing you must do now. No more learning, no more remembering, only being. You are a landscape in moonlight, silent, vast, peaceful. Let your awareness drift once more through the terrain of the brain, not with effort, but like a feather falling through space, past the prefrontal cortex, now resting, no longer weighing decisions. Past the visual cortex, no longer interpreting light, but perhaps dreaming in colors. Past the auditory cortex, now hearing not the world but the faint echoes of memory and imagination. Sink gently through the hippocampus, where today's impressions are being filed away, slowly, gently, without rush. Let the amygdala rest. Let it know that there is no danger here, no alert, no fight, no flight, only stillness, only safety. The brainstem, your silent guardian, remains on duty, keeping heart and lungs in rhythm, keeping you tethered to life even as you drift far, far away. And somewhere deeper, in the stillest chambers of the mind, dreams are forming, softly, quietly, like clouds being painted across a night sky. Maybe you will remember them. Maybe you won't. It doesn't matter. They are here nonetheless. Doing their work, telling their stories, repairing what was worn, reminding you of what is possible. And while they drift and unfold, your brain does something ancient and invisible. It cleans itself. It balances its chemistry. It renews its cells. It restores your spirit. This is what sleep is for. You don't need to understand every detail. You don't need to stay awake to appreciate its magic. Sleep works without permission, without your help. It comes. Because it is needed. Because it is time. Let go of the day now. Let go of your name. Let go of your tasks. Let go of everything that clung to you while the sun was high. The night asks nothing of you, only that you receive. Let the quiet deepen. Let the body feel heavier until it feels like nothing at all. And as your awareness softens completely, remember, you are not your thoughts. You are not your memories. You are not your habits or your roles. You are simply you. A presence, a rhythm, a breath. You are part of something greater, part of the world that sleeps and dreams and wakes again. You are a wave in a larger ocean, a candle in a vast cathedral of stars. Even now, as you let go, the brain carries you gently through the cycles of sleep, through dreams, through stillness, through healing. Everything is okay. You are okay. And in this final stretch of quiet, there is only one thing left to say. Thank you. Thank you for letting yourself rest. Thank you for trusting this journey. Thank you for being here. Sleep well now. You have done enough. You have learned enough. You are enough. And when you wake, may you feel light, clear, centered, rested. But until then, stay here. Stay in this softness. Stay in this silence. Stay in this gentle knowing that all is well. Sleep is not the end. It is a return, and you are already on your way. Good night.